Hello and welcome to another episode of Modern Infrastructure Wednesday. I'm your host, Lee Zen. Today we'll be covering building and publishing Docker images to Azure, where the very common workflow, we're going to have to publish container images to a repository. And so let's talk about this. In this episode, we're going to create a container registry so we can have repositories for our images. We're going to build an image and we're going to push that to ACR. So fairly simple, but very powerful. So here I have if you were to run Pulumi new Azure Python, this is more or less the kind of project you would get. I've done a couple changes. I've added a Docker as a requirement here, and then created a my app with a simple Docker file. Obviously, you would have an actual application in here that represents your particular container image. So we're going to go ahead and create the registry first, as I talked about in the intro. So we're going to use the container service, and let's create the registry. So we can call it registry. Going to give it some options here. Admin enabled, yes, we want that. And then we also want the SKU to be basic, and it'll belong to our resource group up here. I should probably be, I don't do Python that often, but let's be Pythonic and consistent. And then resource group name, and that's going to be the resource group name. All right. So that's that. And actually, if we just run Pulumi up right now, that will give us the registry. And of course, in addition to the registry, we want to create an image and publish it to that registry. So let's, yes. So how do we do this? We can do this, and we need the Docker package. And so here, we're going to use Pulumi Docker image, call this my app, and we'll give it an image name, and this will be based on the registry. So we have registry, and we're going to apply this output since we don't know what it is yet. And it's going to be the server name / our repository name, and then we'll give it a tag. Let's call it v1. And then in addition to that, we have to give it a build, obviously. And this will be, there are a couple ways to do this. You could give it a context or Docker file. The context in this particular case is just, as the docs say here, path to a directory. And so this is that directory I talked about earlier. So context is my app. And then finally, we want to push this to the registry. We can also say skip push, so we don't push it. But let's give it the registry. So how do we do that? Let's call this R for now. And we want to give it an image. You can see this takes a this takes an image registry. So let's create one of those. And how do we do that? Well, we can do this. And this takes a server username and password. But where do those come from? Well, they come from the registry object up here. You should typically be able to pass these in, but working on a small bug in the package right now where it's not accepting the outputs correctly, so we're going to kind of do it for it. So we'll do Pulumi output all, and what output.all basically says is, hey, wait for all of these things to be ready, and then use them asynchronously. So we're going to wait for the registry. Here in this case, we need the login server, the admin username, and the admin password. And we're going to then apply that to create this. So we're going to give it a lambda. And this will be those 3 arguments in this order. Okay, let's clean this up a little bit so it's more readable. All right, and now this is an output of this, which creates this. And so this registry will now be able to be fed into this image creation. So let's run this. And we can actually go ahead and take a look at our stack. You see I had the docs open earlier to make sure I knew like what all these things were, like that there's this admin username and password, kind of how we wanted all that to work. Let's see how this works. Okay, create, it's updating. Great. Let's go back to here. So we look at the resources. We had this registry resource, so let's take a look at that. Oops, I misclicked. Still running. And so if we come to this, we can take a look at the repositories here. So nothing yet. So I think it's still building on the machine and maybe even still pushing. Let's give it a couple seconds here. But you can see this is the registry that we created from the earlier step when we ran Pulumi up just with the registry on its own. And then now we've updated the program to add this image. And again, we're building the image with this Docker build directive here. And then we're giving it the image name. Again, we're using an apply. So again, apply is when we, asynchronously want to do something because, at the time of program execution, this may not be known. And so we have a callback effectively that lets us provide this name when this is ready to be used. And Pulumi takes care of all the dependency tracking to make sure that this only executes after this is known. And then same thing here, we're using output.all to make sure we have all these before we use this callback to create this image registry. So, okay, so it looks like it's done, it's created. And if I go back to here and I refresh, we have the repository, my app, as we talked about right here. If we go into this, it has the tag that I just created, and this is the image that I just pushed just now. So yeah, super simple. In really just a few lines of code, we can create a Docker image, push it into a registry we created, all using Pulumi. Hopefully you learned a lot today. Thanks for watching. Please make sure you like the video and also subscribe to Pulumi TV for weekly updates with modern infrastructure as code. Thanks very much.